Another thing also that we should do, if you're a young kid, you don't have a lot of money. One thing that I do tell a lot of people to do is to get compression tights. Not just the nice, the compression tights by 2XU. I think Nike does some of those. So our athletes, as soon as the game is over, they had compression tights. So if they walked out, they had jeans on, they had some compression tights underneath because we're trying to get the blood flowing through the legs, kind of going. So that's what I'm talking about. As soon as the game is over, before you leave locker room, hydration or recovery should already be on your mind.
Welcome to Q's Health and Wellness Podcast, your source for living a healthier lifestyle and developing a better mind, body, and soul. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful fitness gurus, athletes, and individuals who are passionate about enhancing all aspects of life, we provide you with the tools to help you take your lifestyle to another level. And now your host, Quinn Mitchell.
Welcome to Q's Health and Wellness Podcast. This is your host, Quinn Mitchell. Today I have a very special guest. Marco Nunez is a performance athletic trainer and was also a trainer for the Los Angeles Lakers for 12 years. How you doing today, my friend?
Good morning, Quinn. Good morning. I'm doing very good.
Good. Thanks for coming on the show. So for people that's not familiar with you, would you mind giving a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a certified licensed athletic trainer by nature. That's where I went originally to receive my undergrad at Cal Poly Pomona. I also have a master's in human movement, and I'm actually working on my doctorate right now at FIU. So traditionally, I started as an athletic trainer. I work still as an athletic trainer. What an athletic trainer does is you are the ladies and gentlemen that you go see whenever you do get hurt as far as for an injury, and they help you rehab. Mm-hmm. Performance athletic trainer kind of goes out of just the thinking outside the box, or so to speak, out of the training room, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Where my role in the past several years, in the last 10, 12 years, I quickly learned that all these areas of performance, whether it's strength and conditioning, whether it's nutrition, whether it's on the court, whether it's recovery, all those kind of are intertwined into injury prevention. There's not just one element of injury prevention. Just because you do, proprioception, ankle, PNF patterns in the training room is going to help you deter or reduce injuries. There's a whole element of it. So I've learned to kind of intertwine everything and understand how everything is connected. So when I do work with other individuals, I have the advantage of, hey, you know what? I speak your language. I can work with you. We have to work together. There's no that's your area and this is my domain. No, there's no such thing, because an athlete in a team, he or she goes from the training room, the weight room, the nutrition dietitians on the court. So there has to be a connection or a flow within the whole entire thing. There's no such thing, hey, this is my area, this is your domain type thing. So over the last 12 years, and then nowadays, it with the whole sports science has been evolving as well. So now I also do a little of sports science as far as GPS tracking, muscular output tracking, and all that stuff. So all this is just different areas, different tools, as they call them, tools in your toolbox, to try to help the athlete reduce their injury, or actually reduce the risk of injury. So let's say that, because in reality, unfortunately, you cannot prevent. There's no such thing as preventing injuries. I hate to say this, but that's the truth. There's so many variables out there. You can do all your job. It's just like I tell everybody, you could be a defensive driver. You're driving, you taking the skills, you're great driving, you have the radio station down, you had your hands on the wheels at 10 and 2, but somebody else runs the red light, boom, type of thing.
No, I got you, and I appreciate all that information you provided. So when did you first get started in the athletic training field?
So I started in athletic training when I was in undergrad school. I actually went to school to become a civil engineer. I did that for about a year and a half, and then I quickly realized, you know what, this is not my area. This is not my field. I did not like it. Mm-hmm. I was a big science and math kind of geek, so to speak. So that's why kind of engineering was like, okay, these should be two fits. But I always had a huge passion for medicine, and specifically sports medicine. Mm-hmm. And I was at my undergrad, and I was at a conference, kind of like a leadership conference. And the keynote speaker for the conference was our head athletic trainer at the university. His name was Kai Kugler. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, went over down there, started asking him a bunch of questions. I asked him if I could shadow him. He was open to it. I went in and I shadowed him for a week, and immediately I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. Now, this was like around, I think I want to say like in January, February, but I couldn't start the program until the following school year, which was in September. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I couldn't wait. So I think I was driving in my neighborhood. I saw what was called a sport clinic. Mm-hmm. Walked in, hey, can I start volunteering? I actually, I'm kind of blessed and very grateful that I did that. I took that initiative to do that, because there I met another athletic trainer named Jim Clover, and he pretty much became my mentor And now my colleague and my good friend ever since then. And, whenever I have any issues or questions, he's the one I get up on the phone, call him right away, and bam, he's there all for me.
Got you. Nah, that's awesome, my man. So just diving into the athletic training field, right? So I know you have a lot of clients that you've seen over the years. Is there like one particular like common theme or goal that you've seen with all of your clients? Like, is there like one major obstacle that you've seen with all of them?
Well, yeah, one of the biggest things that I tend to see, and I always preach to young athletes. As a young athlete, and I'm sure when you used to play in any sports, when you were young, you can get out of bed, get the ball, get a football, and roll out there and start throwing 100 miles per hour. You can start throwing the football 50 yards. You can start hooping right out of bed. That's when you're young. But the thing I tell athletes, especially young, you need to start preparing as you progress. As your body gets older, it takes you more time to get ready for the thing. So as you're young, you need to have that mentality. I need to do what I need to do to try to get myself ready so you can have a longevity, a long career in whatever sport you decide to do. I'll tell you a quick story. I'm not going to call anybody out, but we had a young kid with the Lakers. We drafted him, and the same thing. I was telling him this, hey, you know what? You need to come into the training room. And, oftentimes the training room is, and this is the thing, the training room before was referred to as a faux pas because you don't want to go. Only hurt people go. If you're hurt, you stay out of the training room. Because that's, you're cursed if you go into there because that's where it hurt people. But no, it's more of a prevention thing. Is to try to prevent you from getting hurt. And that's how athletic training has been evolving. It's becoming a big injury prevention, not just a match tent where, people go because they're hurt. So the young kid, we drafted him first round. I'm like, hey, you got to come in here. We got to start doing flexibility, mobility, minor injury prevention, stuff like that. Now, granted, he didn't get hurt, but like his third year into it, he came to me and said, hey, Marco, damn, you're right. I'm only 3 years in this league, and I feel like I'm already like 40 years. So stuff like that. So as young kids, young athletes, you need to, do the formal, do everything you need to do, proper nutrition, sleep. Oh my God, we can go hours on sleep here. And I know we're going to talk about recovery. I always get questions. Hey, Marco, what is the best way for me to recover, get you ready for the next game? That's, you know what, the number one way you can recover, and it's actually free, is sleep. Get some sleep. And people don't seem to understand that. People are like, they want to stay up, and especially young kids, they're into their Xbox, their PS5, they're playing, Call of Duty till the cops come home, stuff like that. And I get it. It's fun and stuff like that. And I'm saying don't do that, but I'm saying set some time. And there's been plenty of studies, especially I was in a different Clubhouse podcast a few days ago. We're talking about sleep. And there's studies out there that athletes that sleep, their normal sleep between 6 to 8 hours of sleep have a lower risk of injury. If you sleep less, you have a high risk. It doesn't mean that you're going to get hurt or not, but it increases your chance of getting hurt. Not only that, oftentimes players are like, especially young kids, I'm Superman. I'm immune. I'm invincible. I'm not going to get hurt. And hopefully you don't. I mean, I'm not saying you don't, but there's also studies out there that have shown that kids, athletes that don't sleep also reduce their reaction time. So, hey, you know what? If you're not concerned about getting hurt and you're trying to hit that curveball, you're trying to hit that 98 miles per hour fastball, you got to get sleep because your reaction time is going to go down and you're going to strike out and you're not going to be able to kind of react to it type of thing.
It is crazy that you say that even about the sleep thing, because I just remember being in college and I had a big junior year. And then going into my senior year, I was really like my training, because I wanted that, like once I got that success, I wanted to sustain that. So my whole senior year, I would train 5 a.m., go to the gym. But my thing was I would go to sleep at 2 a.m. So my body was just never fully recovering. And it got to a point where I injured my groin. And I feel like doing the research now, I think I kind of could have prevented that in a sense, because I never really allowed myself to really recover sleep-wise. Like I would play a game, go back to the gym after the game, and then go to sleep like 3 a.m., go to the gym at 5 a.m., 5 to 7, go to class. And it was just a constant cycle. But me, I never really had somebody that really preached to me the importance of sleep. So what would you say is that like the main component in recovery is sleep, or is there other things involved as well?
I mean, there's a lot of other things, components that you can do as far as to recover type of thing. Nowadays recovery is become a big thing, and I don't know why it hasn't been prior to this, but I try to make the argument that sometimes recovery is probably as important, if not maybe slightly more important than what you do before the game and getting prepared to play the game type of thing. But because and the reason why is that in order for you to have that energy and your muscles be able to sustain you to do that pregame activation or that like that workout that you did at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
In order for you to be able to do that workout, your body's had to be able to recover in order to be able to do that workout
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. Think of it as a car. Think of it as gas. Hey, you're driving from here to, I'm in LA, so if you're driving from here to Vegas, you're going to get up in the morning. You got to make sure you refuel your gas tank. Otherwise, you're not getting to Vegas, no matter how fast you drive, no matter what time in the morning you're getting up type of thing.
Yeah.
So you got to refuel your body. Now, am I saying go and sleep 8 hours in a row? You don't have to, but you have to kind of accumulate. And that's one thing about professional athletes too, especially in the NBA. After we wake up, go to shoot around in the morning about 10 a.m. They come back, get a proper meal. And then a lot of the athletes will go take a nap in between day. It may be like an hour, maybe an hour and a half to be able to recuperate and then be able to kind of go for the game. So I'm not saying sleep 8 hours in a row, but you got to try to make sure you try to accumulate those 8 hours, between 6 to 8 hours throughout the day, whether you take power naps, stuff like that. So it doesn't matter. Now, as far as recovery, like I said, what you need to understand, as soon as the whistle blows, the game's over. As soon as the four zeros are up on the court, that is where your mind begins. Okay, now that ended. We're done here. Whether you won or lost, go through your emotions, do your thing. But as soon as you pass that, okay, now I gotta get started. I have to start getting ready for tomorrow, my next session. That's when the recovery begins, right on the spot. Within 30 minutes, you got to start consuming your carbohydrates and your proteins. You got to start replenishing that type of thing. An hour, 2 hours later, you got to do that afterwards. 3 to 4 hours later, you got to do that afterwards. So it's a whole process. It's not just, I wake up and I got to build up to the game. And as soon as the game's over, boom, I'm free. It's almost like, school's out. No, school's not out. Otherwise, you're going to be out.
So just talking about that, I know because when I was playing, that was not like that recovery-wise after the game. That wasn't something that was really focused on. Like everything leading up to the game, heat pads, ice, all that up to the game is cool. But then after the game, that's really something I like. Just thinking about my college career, I never really. I mean, I would put ice on my knee if it hurt, but it was never really something. As far as nutrition-wise, I never really was thinking about putting everything that I lost in the game back into my body. So jumping into nutrition-wise, how important is it? Because I know for myself when I was playing, because I know you work with the top high-level athletes and you've seen them throughout the world. So especially being at AT for the Lakers, how important is it for the nutrition-wise for people to really key in on that? Because I know me, I really didn't take my nutrition serious until later in my career, but I feel like by that time it was too late. So if you were going to give any advice, how important would the nutrition be?
It's hard for me to categorize nutrition, stretching, myofascia, sleep. It's kind of all intertwined. Just like, like if I were to ask you, and I'm not trying to answer this question with the question type of thing. Before the game, putting a hot pack, stretching, activating, getting on the court or getting on the field and doing your activity, which ones of those are most important if you had to choose one? They're not. They're all intertwined. It's a process, right? You get into the training room. You put a hot pack. You warm up the muscle. Then you do a little flexibility. Then you do a little activation. And then you get on the court, or you get on the field, or you get on the ice. Naturally, you can't skip all those and get on the field without warming up before doing the activation, before doing that. So it's all intertwined type of thing. Now, I'll give you a prime example. Hydration. A lot of people think that after you're done with the game, I'm good. Maybe I'll take a little cup of water and then I'm done type of thing. But that's not the reality. I'll give you, we'll go with hydration. I'll give you a prime example. So when I was with the Lakers, we had a player that when we should travel on the road, we should get to a city, we play game, we leave that city, go to the next city, we should land about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. On clockwork, this player will shoot me a text. Hey, Marco, I have a migraine. I have a headache. Can you give me something? I'll give him some over-the-counter ibuprofen, stuff like that. It would be done. But it was every single game. I'm like, what the heck is going on with this kid? So we go back, we look at his blood work, and we quickly realize that his calcium levels, his potassium levels were just really low compared to all the other athletes. So this kid was so then we were partners with the GSSI, Gatorade Sports Science Institute. So I call him in, hey, what I want to do a sweat analysis on this kid and see what his hydration levels are. And while they were there, they decided to do the rest of the team, and I took advantage of that. So after we did the test, we got the results back. We found out that this kid was dehydrated even before he started practice.
Wow.
Before he started every game. He was already in a dehydration stage.
Wow.
So that's why he wasn't. So then we put him on a customized hydration program. And then we put the rest of the team on a customized hydration program. So this is the way it worked. 10 a.m. players come in for a shoot around. Before they come in, they had a small bottle of water with their proper sodium, their proper calcium, and they had to kind of down it and drink it. Before they left shoot around, there was another one. So that's what I'm saying. The hydration program for them began 10 hours before the game even began. Now, as soon as the game was over, there was another bottle of hydration water for them that they had to consume before they left the arena. So that's what I'm saying. It begins, boom, right as soon as you're done, you got to take it. Now, they're all customized. So it wasn't like, one player could just grab one, because what we did a sweat analysis test. We found out what each player was low on or deficient in, and we make sure that we were able to replenish it as soon as they were done. So as soon as they left the arena, boom, they had it done. Another thing also that we should do, if you're a young kid, you don't have a lot of money, one thing that I do tell a lot of people to do is to get compression tights. Not just the nice, the compression tights, but 2XU. I think Nike does some of those. So our athletes, as soon as the game is over, they had compression tights. So if they walked out, they had jeans on, they had some compression tights underneath, because we're trying to get the blood flowing through the legs kind of going. So that's what I'm talking about. As soon as the game is over, before you leave locker room, hydration or recovery should already be on your mind.
And it's crazy that you say, because I literally remember some games where I would literally be in the game killing, but then I would go out with the cramp. Like, I feel my calves. And I'm thinking, and I start to think, like, how much did I eat today? And I think I really didn't eat anything before the game. And now to go to the AT, he'd be like, yeah, your sodium levels. As soon as you leave here, go eat something like with salt. And then I'm thinking, like, it's like those little things, which if I had somebody that would implement it or even told me about those, because I'm just a young athlete, I'm just thinking I'm just gonna go out and play without thinking about actually the stuff that I need in my body. Like, that right there within itself, really, I thought about later in my career that I really was lacking throughout my whole career, because, like I said, I would just get up, go drink some water, or eat a slight breakfast and go out and play. You know what I mean? Eat a banana or something, go out and play. But it was like I never really knew how important that actually was.
No, 100%, and I get it. As a young kid, as a young teenager, you're able to do that. Your body, because your metabolism is so high, you're able to kind of recuperate. You're able to function. You're able to go. You're able to roll. That's why kids are able to stay till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning playing Call of Duty, whatever they do. Get up at 7 a.m. and roll. Nowadays, I got to make sure I get my 8 hours of sleep, because otherwise I don't function.
Yeah, definitely. So this transition, I know that we spoke a little bit on the phone about the jumping mechanics, because I know this is something that a lot of people, especially athletes nowadays, they want to learn about either how to jump higher, or even how to land properly, because that's something that I've seen that a lot of athletes don't know how to actually land, especially if they're high flyers or even they are athletic. But landing wise, that if you land the wrong way, that can end not in your career, but that can give you a serious injury. So would you just speak on that a little bit?
Correct. So landing mechanics. So let me back. Let me give you a little metaphor, something. So every athlete wants to run faster, jump higher, change the direction as quick as they can, because that's what affects the game. And again, you should do that. That's what you need to work on. Okay. So think of it as a vehicle. Okay. You're trying to build your body into a Lamborghini equivalent version. Try to build your body into a Ferrari top, where you want to be able to run, turn the corners, pivot, just like an F1 Formula car type of thing. So you want to go 300 miles per hour, 400 miles per hour. And again, you want to do that. But you also got to have the proper brakes. You're going 300 miles per hour, your brakes don't function. I don't care how expensive that car is. That's going to hit the wall, and you're not going to be able to pivot and turn. That's how you got to think of your body. And the one issue is that, as Isaac Newton says, what goes up must come down. And when you jump up, the stronger, the heavier you are, the forces that are coming down onto your ankle and your knee are a lot higher. So you got to have the proper brakes to sustain you. And like you said, knock on wood, God forbid, you're not going to get a season-ending injury or career-ending injury, but you may start developing, especially like in basketball, you may start developing like patella tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis, quad tendonitis, just a little minor stuff that can be chronic, can be nagging, and can actually change your game. I mean, I've had athletes where they have patella tendonitis and they can't, they feel like they can't quite jump or land, so they can't get the proper shot up type of thing. So now they have to change their shot up. So you need to learn how to be able to properly land, and it's more that eccentric motion, that braking motion. And majority, if you go back and look at ACL injuries, it's always at that. It's not when they explode up. It's when they land and you go see and their knee kind of buckles. because the knee is not strong enough to be able to, or it doesn't have the stability to sustain itself to be able to hold all that weight that's coming down. Or more importantly, if you jump up and someone pushes you, now you have to change direction. Now you got to kind of torque your body to be able to land properly, and you have to be able to sustain yourself type of thing. So there's a bunch of landing mechanics that you need to do as an athlete to be able to train to get those breaks. Great. Get that Ferrari engine, get those Ferrari, body, do what you need to do, but do not forget the brakes. Because like I said, you're driving at 300 miles per hour, a corner comes up, your brakes are not good, you're going to hit the wall.
Now, something I want to ask you is because I'm just thinking of athletes that we all watch every day. Like somebody like LeBron, he's 270, 250, however much he weighs.
Yes.
But he can fly, but you never really see him get injured, whereas as far as we know, on TV, we never see him get injured. So what's the secret behind somebody like LeBron that can fly like that, but still is able to land properly and still do all those little things?
Correct. So athletes like that, and not gonna, like I said, you cannot prevent injuries whatsoever. You cannot stop it. Sometimes injuries, unfortunately, no matter what you're doing, and I hate to say this, it's just reality. But you need to do what you need to do to try to reduce the risk of injury or reduce the risk of chronic issues or injuries type of thing. So yeah, go do your regular stuff, do your lifts, do your power lifts, do your Olympic lifts, do your plyos, do all that stuff, do your change of direction that you need to do, but you make sure you got to incorporate and blend it into your program as far as what's called the eccentric muscular contractions, the landing mechanics. Make sure that your strength coach, your athletic trainer, your physical therapist is incorporating, especially if you come back from an ACL injury or you had an ACL sprain. The landing mechanics, the eccentric motion is as important, if not, I mean, I don't want to say, but probably, probably a lot of, I was going to say, no, I don't need brakes. I want to jump higher first. And I get it. You do. That's what everybody wants. But you got to get your brakes. You got to incorporate it into you have to incorporate it into your workout. It should be part of your workout. It should not be like, okay, you know what? I done my workout. All right, let me go do 30 seconds of breaking, eccentrically. No. It should be blended into your program. It should be part of your program.
Gotcha.
Just like recovery, if I ask athletes, if I guarantee you, if you go talk to all these athletes, whoever they are, and you ask them, hey, let me see your workout log. They'll give you, hey, this week tomorrow I'm working on bis and tris. On Tuesday they have a log. On Tuesday I'm working on legs. I'm doing RDLs. I'm doing Olympic lift. And then and then they ask them, hey, you know what? Let me see your recovery log. Guarantee you, 98, 99%. I'm like, oh, I don't have one.
No, definitely. And one of the things I wanted to ask you as well, when we were talking about recovery, that I forgot to ask is the importance of stretching. Because I know me as an athlete, that's something I overlooked my whole career was stretching. I hated stretching. I never wanted to do it. If I was going to do it, it would be a quick, basic stretch, and I'll just go off and play. And I found like something I struggled with was my whole career is my hamstrings. Just my especially during like the near ending part of the season, I would feel my hamstrings get weak, and I often will pull one or start to tear one. So how important would you say is the stretching part of everything? I know it's important with the recovery wise, but just particularly stretching, how important is that, would you say?
Okay, so when we talk about stretching, we also talk about mobility of your hips, okay? So I'll give you a prime example with you. And then I wasn't there, so I don't know. But I get this oftentimes where we have athletes that come in, hey, Marco, my hamstring's tight. My hamstring feels tight. During the game, my hamstring's feeling tight. Or they wake up, hey, they'll come in, hey, my hamstring's like really, really tight. And the initial reaction is to go, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and stretch your hamstring. And that's kind of boom, because it's tight. But as an athlete trainer, performance athlete trainer, I'm trying to look at the whole picture. I'm not just trying to look at the hamstring. And what happens oftentimes, and hopefully you can see me, I don't know if you can see it. So here's your pelvis, right? Your pelvis kind of rotates forward and back and also side to side. And one of the issues that I always find is that if the hip flexor muscle in front in your pelvis, if it's tight, what it does, it pulls your pelvis forward. So now naturally your hamstring is going to try to pull it back into neutral position. And that constant pulling back, the hamstring's overworking. So the question is that it's not your hamstring that's having the issue. The hamstring's doing its work. It's that the hip flexor and the quads in front are so tight that they're pulling it forward, and your hamstring's trying to do its job to pull you back. So what I would do is I wouldn't necessarily stretch a hamstring. I would release the quad and the hip flexor to try to increase mobility. And what happens is then it would pull the pelvis back to neutral, and then you would naturally, then players would be like, oh, my hamstring felt better, but you didn't even touch my hamstring because the hamstring's not the issue. So, there's a different thing. So, stretching and mobility. Now, if you're asking me as far as like, I'll also get this question of what should I stretch before the game? So there's been studies out there where there's two types of stretches, a dynamic stretch and a static stretch. Static stretch is when you stand still, you're laying down, you touch your hands, toes, and all that stuff. You pull your knee back and stuff like that. So before an activity, studies have shown that it's better that you do what's called a dynamic stretch versus a static stretch. Dynamic stretch actually helps increase performance. Mm-hmm. So meaning that you get up there, you do high knees, you do butt kicks, you do some side stuff, you start loosening up the muscles in that manner. So before activity, do a dynamic stretch. After activity, that's where you can go ahead and do a static stretch.
And I think that's the secret. Now, I know you saying that you worked with, I know you work with the Lakers. So so I know it's an 82 game season, right? And I know every night they got to go out and perform. So what is you working with the players directly? What is something that really like helped them maintain their longevity throughout the whole season? Because I know for me, when I was at college playing 22 games, it was a rough time just trying to get through the 22 games. So for those players at a high level playing 82 games, what would you say is like the secret that really helped them really? I know it was the recovery part, but is there anything else that you would say that really helped them, like the longevity wise, play and stay healthy throughout the season?
You know what? So there's a lot of things, and I guess I'm trying to find one thing that you asked, and the first thing that pops to the mind is not necessarily what I would do for them, and doesn't necessarily what the strength coach or the physical therapist would do. It's what the athlete wants to do, because at the end of the day, I cannot pull an athlete into the trim. What am I going to do? I'm going to tackle KB and throw him on the table. Hey, I need to stretch you out. No, it doesn't work. It's up to the athlete to want to come in and be able to get that. And the one thing I've realized, in order for me to do that, educating the athlete was probably one of the best things. The first thing that popped in my head, I remember there was an athlete on the plane, a young kid. We had just drafted him, top of thing. I was trying to help him, and we would give him the recovery tights. And then one day I walk around the plane and I see that his tights are on the floor. I'm like, dude, I'm like, what's going on? It's like, oh no, I don't need them. I'm like, dude. I'm like, so I sat with him. Hey, this is why we're providing. And then I'm like, boom, bam, 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 bam. I gave him like all the reasons. And once he kind of understood, it's like, oh, okay, now I get why. I'm like, this is for you. So the next day he started, then he started wearing them. And he got to the point, it's like, yo, Marco, where are my tights? Where are my tights? Where are my tights? Like, he wouldn't leave the arena with that. So it has to be, as an athlete, you have to take the initiative. And then as far as my part, I feel like it has to be educating them as far as, okay, this is why. It's not just me nagging you. I'm not your dad. I'm not your mom. I'm not here to babysit you. Even though sometimes I feel like I'm a glorified babysitter, but that's a whole different topic.
No, I definitely understand. I appreciate all that. So just talk about your experience with the Lakers. How did that actually come about?
That was interesting. It was kind of fun. So before I started with the Lakers, I was actually working with the LA Sparks. So I started working with the LA Sparks. I think this was back in 2004 with Lisa Leslie. I had the opportunity to work with Lisa Leslie, Shomiko Holsclaw, Mawadi Babika, great athletes. And I was lucky enough that the Sparks were owned by the Lakers at the time. So our locker room and our training room was right across the hallway from the Lakers. So I got to meet Gary Vitti. And so I was part of the Lakers family, even though I wasn't with, I guess, the Lakers. So slowly by slowly, the Lakers, Gary would ask them to come over when they would go on the road. Hey, since you're going to be home, can you work on this athlete? And I would work with them during summer camps, during training camps, stuff like that. And then finally had the opportunity that an assistant training position opened up with the Lakers. I interviewed for it. I was blessed enough to get the position, and then I got hired on, and I came on board with the Lakers. I started assistant trainer, and then I transitioned to head athlete trainer. So I was with the Laker family, or the organization itself, for 17 years itself, with the Sparks. And then I also worked with the South Bay Lakers. Now they're called the South Bay Lakers. Back then we were called the LA Defenders. Their development league. I did that work with them for 3 years, and then eventually 12 years with the Lakers itself.
Nah, that's awesome, my man. And one question I want to ask you, because honestly, Kobe Bryant was my favorite athlete growing up. Rest in peace. I literally used to watch all his films, watch all his documentaries. And I know you kind of work closely with them. So would you like to share just any untold Kobe stories that nobody really knows about, whether from his work ethic or recovery-wise, anything that you would like to share?
Yes. Well, there's some I can't tell. So, okay. So, as far Kobe was a different cat. Kobe, I kind of see Kobe, if he didn't play for the Lakers and he probably played in the 70s or early 80s, he would definitely fit perfectly in Showtime. He would have definitely fit into the Detroit Pistons bad boys. That was KB. KB came in. I mean, he would fight anybody and battle anybody type of thing. But that was his mentality. That was kind of the toughness or the mama mentality that everybody talks about. Now, I'll give you a prime example. And I quickly learned about the mama mentality my very first game of when I started with the Lakers assistant trainer. And we were, myself and our head strength coach, Team DeFrancesco, we get to Denver. And Kobe goes and does, we land at about 3 o'clock, about 4 or 5 p.m. He goes to the gym and kind of starts working out. Comes back and we get a call from his security guard or his, and tells, hey, KB's looking for a cold tub. Now we're at a hotel. I'm like, dude, we don't carry a cold. I'm like, we don't carry a cold tub. My first, okay, well, maybe we do your tub and we'll put some ice in there type of thing. But dude 6'6", not going to fit in there, right? So I'm like, what are we doing? So Tim and I are like, what are we doing? We can't figure it out. So then, I guess, the security's like, hey, no, what you need to do this. And all of a sudden, pause for a second, and KB comes on the phone. And I'm not telling you the exact words he used, but he's like, I don't care how rough the waters are. Tell me when the boat gets in. Boom, click. I'm like, all right, we got to roll with this. And so, luckily, Tim DeFrancesco, our strength coach, knew he had a good friend at the University of Denver. We called her up. Hey, we need a favor. We'll get your ticket somehow. I don't care. You need to go open up these doors for us. So we had to do what we need to do. She finally helped us out. We tell him, he goes over there, goes into the University of Denver, goes into the cold tub, and done. But that's kind of like what the mama mentality is. Hey, you need to do what you need to do to get the job done. And the crazy thing about KB, it wasn't that he just didn't expect that from himself, or didn't expect that from his teammates, or didn't expect that just from his coach. He expected that from everybody that was around him: training staff, equipment manager, cleaning crew, ticket service people, front office people, security. Everybody was part of one unit, part of the game. So I had to make sure that first time, hey, from here on out, I got to bring my A game no matter what and anything. And and later down the road, a couple of years ago, I read this book called The Obstacle is a Way by I forget the name of the author. His last name is Holiday. Mm-hmm. And the story goes there that a king decides to put a big rock. So there's a little story in there where he puts there's a castle, and he decides to put a big boulder right in front of the entrance. And he wanted to see how his people reacted. Some people approach us like, we can't do anything. Let's just go our way. Other people are like, hey, you know what? Let's see if we can climb around it, climb on top type of thing. And then finally somebody took a chisel and decided to break right through it and, hey, go through it. And that's kind of like the Kobe mentality. Hey, you're going to encounter roadblocks. There's going to be roadblocks no matter what in your career and whatever you do as an athlete. You can either shy away from it. You can maybe cheat a little bit, try to figure out a different way to go about it. Or you can just, go head on and, hey, you know what? I'm going straight through that roadblock. Because as an athlete, especially if you're a basketball player, and you're coming down the court, you see a big man right in front of you, you can either F it, I'm going to dish to somebody else, have the guy in the corner hit the three-pointer, or I'm going to go right through him, back, pull my shoulder down, get a foul, and get the little layup type of thing. And that was kind of KB. One quick story again. I don't know how much time you got.
No,
same thing.
We can talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A prime example, that one year we won the championship, KB had what's called an avulsion fracture in his finger and his shooting hand. So if you go back and look at the pictures with him holding the championship, he has his finger taped up. So easily most athletes would have been like, hey, you know what? I'm done. That's it. I'm out for 2-3 weeks. Maybe I need surgery. I'm calling it quits. My season's done. So he comes in the next morning. We tape it up. He goes on the court, starts shooting. He's missing. You can tell he's getting frustrated, but he keeps going. He's missing. He tries to, moves the ball a little bit different, moves his hand a little bit different, starts making a shot. Makes it. Makes another one. Then, boom, 10 in a row. Puts the ball down. Boom, figured it out. So in his mind, it's like, you know what? I got a broken finger. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to figure out how to go overcome this and work with what I have. He made the shot. I mean, say the least, won the championship that year.
No, definitely. And one thing I want to ask you as well is, I know a lot of people talk about his work ethic, because I know a lot of people really didn't see it, but I know you were behind closed doors. Was his work ethic really what they say it was? Was he really out there before everybody and was the last person in the gym?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. No, I mean, by the time players, so we should open up the gym about 8:30 in the morning for 11 o'clock practice, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Players start rolling in at about maybe, I think treatments began at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Players start rolling about 9:30 to go onto the court for an 11 o'clock practice. By the time the players came in, he had already had a full workout in the weight room. He already had a full workout in the court. He was actually, when players were coming in, he'd be in the training room recovering from that workout to get ready for the practice. That was the thing.
Wow, that's crazy, man. And I just appreciate you sharing those stories. Like I said, a lot of people they hear those stories, but you were there firsthand. So I just appreciate you sharing those experiences with me as well.
No problem.
Yep. So transition. I want to talk about the mental health one because I know athletes that play at a high level. How important really is it for the mental health aspect? Because everybody sees the physical, the weight room, the skill work, but how important really is it that you see the mental health aspect of players nowadays?
Oh, you know what? I can make the argument that, that the mental health or the mental aspect or your mental mindness is probably more important than your physical aspect of it. I mean, a lot of times, sports is a mental game. There's a lot of trash talk. I mean, that's the whole point of playing basketball, playing football, playing hockey, playing whatever you do. Your mental approach to the game is as important. I mean, we can talk a full hour on mental mindness, but yeah, I mean, having that mental, and I think that's the same thing as far as the mama mentality is having that mentalness, knowing that there are going to be people out there hating on you. There's going to be people that are going to be supporting you. There's people that are going to want to see you down. But understanding, hey, you're here for a purpose. It's you. It's not necessarily you against the world. You still have your teammates in there. And you're working as a team. But sometimes, there was an example. I think there was a baseball player more than a couple of years ago, Chuck Knobloch. I think he played for the Yankees. Great second fielder, one of probably the best second baseman fielders out there. And I still remember the day where he started having trouble throwing to first base. Major League Baseball player from second base throwing to first base, and he started having some kind of mental block, and he had to retire from it. But it was interesting how the mind. And I'll give you a prime example. Phil Jackson, the Zen master, had this thing about the difference between the mind and the body. Okay, now he understood that, hey, you know what? When you're going out there and playing before the game, you got to do what you need to do. You need to activate your body. You get the muscle blood flowing. You get the muscles active. You need to go boom. You need to be rolling, stuff like that. Once in a while, he kind of had trouble with understanding how some of the players would start listening to like rap music or loud music or rock music, something loud, right? And it's natural. You want to get like pumped up and stuff like that. It's normal. But his thing was like, hey, you know what? You should be listening to classical music. Because his thing was like, hey, you need to have your mind calm. You need to have your mind set. You need to be ready to be able to understand, see what's going on in the court, be able to react to everybody that's going on. Your mind needs to be nice and calm, but your body needs to be rolling, active, blood flowing, stuff like that. So having that mindset is important because you need to be able to kind of either regroup, stuff goes down. It was funny. One of those things that I'll tell you another story where during some timeouts, I used to watch, I sit behind the bench and I used to watch Phil Jackson. I remember he made one comment one time, kind of struck in my mind. Oftentimes when the team's going up and down, and now they're down by 2 points, they're down by 3 points, they're down by 4 points, naturally a coach will kind of like, boom, let's call a timeout, let's regroup type of thing, right? That's kind of like natural reaction. I remember this one game, we're down by 4, 5, 6 points. Phil's assistant coach was like, hey, let's call timeout. And Phil's like, no, let them figure it out. Right. So but the great thing is he gave them an opportunity. Hey, you know what? I'm going to bail you out. I'll bail you out if I need to, but you guys need to mentally get out there, regroup, work as a team, get your your S together and see. Once he realized, hey, you know what? Okay, they're not figuring out, he would kind of bring him in. And I actually love this. His comment was like, he would make a quick comment, like one comment. He'll be like, hey, great way to F that up. Right. He's like, he'll give him a little remark, but then he'll be like, all right, the pass, get it out of your head. Let's roll here. And that was his thing. It's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, let's learn from that. You guys effed up. That's fine. It's normal. It's going to happen. Don't, get it out of your head. Learn from it, but let's move on. Okay. Don't, as soon as you get back on the court, that's a pass. Let's roll from here. I love one thing I think I read somewhere where you have the W's and L's. W stand for wins. The L shouldn't stand for losses. The L should stand for lessons. And if you don't learn from those lessons or those losses, it's going to hunt you. So W's are wins, L's are lessons, not losses. Lessons you have to learn. If you don't learn your lesson, then yeah, then it is a loss because you don't learn anything from it.
It's crazy that you said that, just because I've been, like, during my playing career, it's just the fact about being and staying in the moment and not dwelling on the past is something that was really like a big thing for me, especially later in my career, because even like when you go out and have bad performances, I'm sure that could, especially at a high level, especially being a pro, I'm sure those guys, that could really weigh on them. But having somebody like yourself or even coaches around you that constantly remind you to stay in the moment, worry about the present and what's going to happen next, that's something that could really benefit you in the long run, I'd say.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like I said, you it's not necessarily dwelling on the past, not dwelling on the loss or stuff like that, but learning from what the mistakes that you've done and moving forward. And I get it. It's hard. It's normal to dwell on the past, especially if you lost. Like I said, after the game, whether you win or lose, you go through your emotions, and that's normal. You have to. I'm not going to tell you not to go through them. You have to go through them. But also then there's a stage, okay, you know what? All right, let's move on. Let's learn from it. Oh, hey, you know what? We won. That's fine. Even if you won, you still learn from what you did that you won, because you take whatever you did and then bring it with you, type of thing. Because even if you get a W, I'm sure there's occurrences within that game that happened that you lost small little battles. You won the war, so to speak, but you probably lost a few little battles here and there. Learn from those as well.
No, definitely. And one thing I want to ask you is, because I know you're a strength and athletic coach. So especially doing performance wise, when I was coming up in college, I know there was, even in high school, there was a lot of programs out there to try to get your vert higher. So you got these air alert programs, I'm sure you heard of, and all these different sorts of programs out there. So what would be, and I know a lot of them, I've seen like they would hurt my knees. So I'm like, this isn't even working. So like I would jump higher, but in the long run, it's hurting my knees. So this is not really working. So what would you say is one secret that you would say that not a lot of college kids or professionals even know would be a key to help them jump higher or even become more explosive?
So the prime example, like you're talking about, and I'm not surprised, is that like those programs that you use will help you kind of increase your vertical a little bit. Okay, you may get a couple inches, stuff like that. But what I've noticed about a lot of these programs, they're just focusing on your up, get up. They're not focusing on landing mechanics. So in your example, when you were probably hurting your knee, I wouldn't be surprised if you started developing what's called a little bit of patella tendonitis. You probably had the little discomfort right in front of your knee, right below your kneecap, right?
Yep, that's the jumper's knee.
Exactly. So here's the thing. When you jump, you use your glutes and your hamstrings. Those are the muscles that kind of explode you up. When you land, you use your quads to kind of break your system down. So if you're all you're doing, you're just jumping, using your glutes, using your hamstrings to try to get that power up in your calf, that's great. But now, like I said, the higher you jump, the more you jump, it's more, now you're breaking, you're landing, and you have to develop that braking system. And if your quads and what's called your VMO, this low muscle right there, where your quads aren't strong enough to sustain that load coming down, all that tension is going to go to your patella tendon. So now you're going to start developing patella tendonitis. So fine, work on your ups, but you have to work on your downs. So what I tell a kid, if you go into a program and all they're focusing on, hey, you know what? If you walk in and in a day or two, all you're doing is jumping, and the strength coach, whoever it is not even touching on your landing, you know what? I got to go find somebody else.
No, definitely. So are there particular workouts or exercises that you would recommend to practice the landing, let's say?
Correct. So start with basic stuff. All it is, you find a step, find a curve. Even if you go on the street, you find a step, and all you do is first start 2 feet, then you hop down and you gather yourself. Okay, you land on both feet, and then also you land on a single foot type of thing. And it's just kind of landing. And one of the best things to do is get a mirror. Find a mirror that you're doing and land in front of the mirror. Because the whole point of it is that when you land, your knee shouldn't buckle too far in. That's called a valgus. And if that does buckle, that tells you that your knee is not stabilized enough to when you land. So it's more of a feedback. Or have the strength coach, whoever is stand in front of you, they should be able to stand in front of you and watch your landing mechanics and then correct those landing mechanics as you're landing type of thing. So yeah, work on your ups. But because like in your case, in most people's case, if your knee goes down and it buckles inward, all that tension oftentimes goes into your patella tendon, to your quad tendon, or knock on wood, it goes into your ACL. And we don't want that tension going. So that landing force has to go somewhere. As soon as you land, just like when you hit the wall or you hit a wall, either you're gonna break through the wall or you're gonna break your hand. That force has to go somewhere. And what you want is not that you want the force dispersed all the way between your ankle, your knee, and your hips. Otherwise, that force is going to go straight into your knee, and that's when you start developing issues, whether it's patella tendonitis, quad tendonitis, or like I say, God forbid, ACL tear.
Got you. And another question I have for you, because I know, like, you're seeing more of nowadays in the NBA is the Achilles tendon. Is there a reason why that a lot of more players nowadays are getting or tearing the Achilles or even having Achilles problems, you would say?
So as far as when it comes to Achilles rupture, unfortunately, there haven't been any studies or data that shows that, hey, you know what, this is a reason for an Achilles rupture. So when the tendon kind of complete tears, there has been some as far as degeneration developing in that area, just from years and years working. I mean, I don't know, why that is. One of the speculations is that, 20 years ago, kids didn't really start playing competitive sports until they got to high school, 20, 30 years ago. Nowadays, they're starting as young as 8 years old, 7 years old. That was kind of the interesting part. When I was at the Lakers and we should do the NBA draft, my job was to look at all the athletes' medical history and see what their bodies are. We used to do MRIs, we do X-rays, we do scans, we do CT scans. We used to do everything on these athletes. And we should do the $1 million work on these athletes because we were going to draft them. And I would see stuff that I'm like, dude, this kid is 18 years old, but he's got a 40-year-old body. I'm like, what's going on here? Type of thing. And so I think this is one of even more reason early in your prevention and your recovery. Don't wait till you get to high school. Like I said, 30 years ago, you didn't start competing until you got your junior year, your senior year, or people used to, scout you out in your sophomore, junior year type, unless you were like this incredible, crazy Michael Vick type of thing or Michael Jordan type of thing. But other than that, then now kids are getting scouted as young as 10, 11. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. That's a whole different podcast.
But it's crazy that you even say that just going to the NBA draft is your role in that fact is not really people even realize that all that stuff is going around in the background, and that goes in depth into actually studying the athlete and getting all their medical history.
What? And I hate to use this again. I hate to use analogies, and not trying to sound bad or evil, whatever. But oftentimes the way we look at athletes is think of a NASCAR vehicle. NASCAR, right? The cars. My job is to go kick the tires, look under the engine, look in the hood, look in the frame. Because that's the reality of it type of thing. There's a great 30 by 30 out there by ESPN. If you have a chance to look at it, I think it's called The Dotted Line. It talks about the agents and what they do to try to get their players prepared for the draft and all this stuff. It's crazy. There's a whole thing behind the scenes that people do. It's not just, hey, let's just show up on Thursday on draft day and we'll take him. It's like it's like a 4 or 5 month process that begins even before that. Before players drafted. It's not just, day before, 2 days before, or 2 days before.
No, but just thinking about that kind of explains why some players don't get drafted where they do, or why certain teams pass up on certain players, because a lot of times from the outside where we just think this guy scored 28 points a game, he should be drafted 13, 14, but we don't understand that you guys are going behind the scenes or digging up stuff that me as the general public don't know about. So that actually explains a lot of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yep.
Definitely. And the one last thing I want to ask you before I let you go is the myth of weightlifting affecting your jump shot. I know that was something that I was told in high school, don't lift during the season. And it wasn't really until my sophomore, junior year in college where I really started bulking and still lifting consistently during the season. I would just go shoot after. That really never affected me. So what are your thoughts on that?
There's no studies that I've read that affects your jump shot.
So that was just a myth all along.
From what I've read, I haven't read a study on it. Now, if I'm wrong and somebody out there listens to this podcast and has a study, by all means, please send it to me. I'm a big research guy. I love reading studies because I love to stay up to date information. So please send it to me.
But I'm just glad you say that because, like I said, you work with professional athletes all the time. So I know that kids, they're often told not to lift during the season. But you see during the season, especially in the NBA, guys are lifting all throughout the season.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time, every day, so here's the thing. Now, am I saying go lift heavy every single day? No, you don't have to lift heavy every single day, but there's stuff you could do in the weight room. There's what's called a recovery lift. There's called an activation lift. There's called a strength lift. There's called a plyo lift. There's all different types of lifts you can do in there. Now, does it mean you have to go lift heavy every day? No. Now, if you're asking me, hey, should you lift heavy every day? No, you should not lift heavy every day. Majority of your bulkiness and heaviness should be done during the off season, and in the season is more of a maintenance phase. And you can do heavy days. And here's the thing: also, your strength coach should also be able to target those days where you can lift heavy, especially if there's a couple games in between. You have like a 4-day gap or 5-day gap between a game or something like that. Yeah, by all means, but you should be able to have enough time to be able to recover, get you ready for the game. So there's a flow to it. There's a process to it, type of thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, can you lift? Yes, you can lift during the season, and you should continue lift. You should also focus on your injury prevention lifts, on your activation, your mobility, your stability. There's a lot of things you can do in the weight room. You as an athlete, you should be in the weight room doing something every single day, whether it's, like I said, it's a recovery, mobility, activation, core stability, anything of that sort, or working on any areas or issue that you might have.
And like I said, I appreciate you just saying all that, because I could pick your brain for hours at a time, but I don't want to keep you much at a time. I'd love to have you on for a part 2. Just talk about
more, for sure. Let me know
more in depth. Before I let you go, guys, because I know you do train clients yourself. So would you mind just giving the listeners your information and how they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm out here in the LA area, Southern California. I work with a lot of athletes, celebrities, professionals as well. So you can either DM me through my Instagram at Marco A Nunez 17. Or go to my email at very simple, marcoanunez.com.
I got you. And the last thing I want to ask you before I let you go, what is a typical day like for you? And do you have any special morning routines that you go through?
Well, my morning routines is, I usually get up at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I have to, and my routines, I got to get my workout in before the day begins, type of thing. Otherwise, I don't go. My day begins. I start seeing clients as early as 6 a.m. and it rolls all the way to about some days goes until 10 p.m. if not noon. So I see both athletes as far as for strength and conditioning. I see also clients or patients for rehab, stuff like that. So my day kind of rolls. So I got to make sure I get my time in the morning. Otherwise, I lose my time.
Definitely. Man, so Marco, I appreciate you coming on the show and chatting with me, because like I said, a lot of this information people can't really get access to, but I appreciate you coming on the show and just chatting up with me for an hour or so. And before I let you go, what I asked this question to all my guests: what is something that you're most grateful for?
I think I would say my family. I'm blessed to have my family. I love spending time with my kids and my wife, and just spending family time. That's the one thing also that I've realized working in the professional setting. Sometimes it's very normal to get lost in that. It's common to get lost in that. But you got to make sure, as a foundation, your family is your foundation and your ground, and that's what's going to keep you grounded. And you got to make sure you spend time with that.
Got you. And like I said, I appreciate you coming on the show, Marco. I definitely love to have a conversation with you.
For sure. Let me know.
All right, we'll do.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Q's Health and Wellness Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe or to leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at QuinnMitchellII.com, as well as find us on Instagram for more useful content and resources.